Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Yeah, no mics? Good. Let me know if you don't. Or maybe I just speak nonsense, so it's okay if you don't hear. Agile on batteries, agile transformation in the biotech industry from my own experience that started several years ago. Few words about myself first. So I need to read this, okay? I'm married, I have 4 kids and a dog. I'm the founder of Agile Executive. I work as Agile coach for over 15 years now with different industries and different sizes of organizations, from startups to corporates. And I also a Scrum trainer by scrum.org. And I want to start my journey in the biotech industry. It started just before COVID. I got a phone call from a VP of R&D in a chemical startup. He asked me if I could help them. What the startup is doing, the next generation of fast charging batteries for electric vehicles. And they had, their main challenge was how to accelerate their development cycle by making smarter decisions along the way about where to research more, where to stop researching, where to go next. That's where the main challenge. He heard about Agile and he asked me whether I can help them. And I, back then, still had over 15 years of experience because I lived the number 15 for at least 10 years. I had a lot of experience by then, and still I was challenged because I don't really knew the industry, didn't really knew the industry back then. And all of the people, many of the employees there have PhD degrees. And what can I tell them about Agile that can help them develop the next generation of science? How can I adjust Scrum and Agile to the biotech industry and to chemical startup where molecular formulas replace code lines and anode and cathodes are the artifacts? What can I do? So I was challenged a little bit, but I decided to take the challenge. The VP of R&D decided to hire me for this job, and we started to work together. So in this talk today, I will tell you about my journey with them and with other organizations from the biotech industry, which I had privilege to work with since. Okay? I will share my insights about the main differences between the biotech industry and the software industry, which is more commonly used Agile and Scrum, and the main highlights in Agile and Scrum that make the most impact on these industries. And if you have any questions, please feel free. So let's start with the main differences between the industry, the high-tech, the biotech industry and the software industry. Hello. So first, when there is someone that has a great idea and wants to bring up a start, develop a new product that helps to solve some problem of people, okay, most likely that he or she will be able eventually to build the product. The main risk is whether other people will think that the product is as valuable as he thinks and he will be able to sell it, right? This is the software industry. But in the biotech industry, if people will be able to make it, it's the pharmaceutical and fast charging batteries, most likely that it will sell, right? The question is it possible to get that? Is it possible to achieve the product? The level of complexity of unknown is huge. I placed here the matrix of Douglas Stacy, okay, about complexity in organization. You all know that? You ever seen this before? Okay, it talks about different level of complexities in organization. And when we talk about Agile and Scrum, we talk mostly about the complex zone, where there are more unknown than known, which is the software industry. So the biotech industry is in the thin line between chaotic and complex because there is much more that is unknown and we need to reinvent science. A second difference between the software and the biotech industry is how much we know Agile. So in the software industry, it's a brown field. People, almost everyone in this industry knows at least something or at least heard the word Agile or Scrum, okay? it can be a positive thing, but it also can be an anchoring, for a notion that I have about what Agile and Scrum is, which is not correct, and sometimes it makes it more difficult to convince them that you're not real Agile. Who's seen organizations that are not real Agile and they call themselves so? Too much, right? Okay, so this is the pros and cons of the brownfield, but in the biotech industry, it is much less known. Okay, the word Agile, Scrum, it's not very familiar with that industry. This industry is the greenfield, and that can be hard, but on the other hand, it can be a real benefit. And I want to give you an example from Jack Knott. He was the former CEO of EPAC Digital Printing in the US, and EPAC, unlike other printing manufacturing, they worked with a different vision. Most of the printing industry in the US was based on, we have one huge manufactory, and we create all the artifacts for our clients there, and we deliver the artifacts all over the States. But EPAC decided that they wanted to be closer to their customers, to get to know them better, and hence they built manufacturers next to their main or strategic clients all over the US. Okay, so in one of the press conferences, Jack Knott, who was the former CEO, was asked, how does he recruit, what is he looking for in people that he recruit to manage this manufacturing? And he answered that the one thing that he's looking for in these people that they do not have experience from the print industry. And this is because we are looking for people who dare to dream, not for people who can explain me what cannot be done. Okay, so being in the greenfield can be a great advantage after all. A third difference is about the increment. Increment, a potentially shippable software increment, right? So if I work in software and if I develop, for example, this remote control in software, so this can be software developed, an increment, okay? It's not the entire, we don't have the entire functionality, but the buttons that I do deliver work and do the work great, right? And then I can add more functionality and more functionality over time. Very clear. But when I'm talking about batteries, how can I split the battery into smaller pieces of value? Okay, so the done idea is slightly different. What we want to have is an ability to make smarter decisions about what to investigate next, where our next research is going to be, what research to drop and what research to start, in order and while we are seeing the entire capabilities of the product that we are aiming to deliver. Last difference between the industries. When we're talking in the biotech industry, there are many researchers, people that are coming from the academy that are used to focus only on building the thing right. Researchers can take years of years, okay? But here, we're building a product, and we need the money for that. We can't wait until it will be perfect. So what can we do? We need to make them understand to take a little bit out of the do the thing right and that they build a product, and we need also to consider that we need to build the right thing and build it fast. Okay, it's also in software development, of course, but it's much less straightforward in the biotech industry when you have PhD people from the academy. Okay, it's really, really hard to convince them that we need to deliver a product, and the sooner the better. We don't have the time. So these are the four main differences between the industries, and I'm gonna move forward for the process itself. So we all know Scrum. I used mainly Scrum, mainly elements from Scrum in that transformation. And I want to talk about two main themes that made the most different. First theme is about people and teams. It's all about the people after all, right? So one of the first things that we did is create cross-functional team. Before we started the transformation, the teams were by skill, by expertise, by domain expertise, and the manager of the team was the senior researcher that had the last word about what we need to do in the cathode, in the anode, in the electrolytes, etc. We didn't have the big picture view of how all the parts of the battery works together. This is one of the things that were missing very much for the purpose of making smarter decisions about how to move forward. I don't care that the anodes are in a great position if the battery at all doesn't work. So we created cross-functional teams, and actually new roles in the organization were born. First, the Scrum Master, okay, the one that facilitates the work of the team. And the second is the product owner, who makes the final decision about what to do next. The manager, the senior researchers, okay, were outside of the Scrum team, and they provided professional guidance to their team members across the Scrum team. This was a very, very big change in the organization, a change in perception, and it was not easy. So two main challenges that occurred because of this change. First, the difficulty to orchestrate, the difficulty to speak the same language. You know, in medicine, it's also a struggle that we all know, that if you have an orthoped and a cardiologist needs to speak together because everything is in the same body. And sometimes doctors from different disciplines cannot see the impact of one organ over the other, right? And the soul over the body. It's hard. And it was very hard there as well to combine the different disciplines into one team that can speak the same language. That created a lot of resistance around this, and it broke the entire essence of the career of scientists in the industry. Okay, they are used that if I'm a senior scientist, I'm the one who needs to say what to do, okay, in my area. So it was very difficult to orchestrate. The second challenge was about the role perception. Again, senior scientists are used to say what to do next. And now, from making the final decisions, the managers that were outside of the Scrum team were only professional advisors for the team. Because eventually the team and the product owner makes the final decision about what to do next. And this created a lot of mess. Some people, by the way, could not bear that and decided to leave. Okay, this is part of the process. Now, we did a lot of training and mentoring for these managers in the organization, and these are one training that we did with traffic facilitation with my partner back then, and these are some drawings from the training that can reflect to us the problem, the resistance of this manager. So part of it is in Hebrew, so I'll translate for you, unless you know to read. Anyone? Mama? Okay, so this one, okay? All I wanted is to help me understand why I cannot do that, not for you to do it for me. Okay, so the manager are used to be senior professional advisor. If you don't know, I will tell you how to do it. Okay, but now we want to engage the team, to be self-managed, to work. So it's a different attitude that they need to adopt. On the left, just a minute. Should I touch people in this role? Touch, not in the physical meaning, but relate to their feelings and see them as people, not only as professionals. Yes, because you want to motivate them. That is one of your accountabilities as a group leader and a professional group leader. This is about the question the team asks: how do we get off the island? What do you suggest? Okay, we had to teach them to ask questions back, not necessarily answer, okay? And we had to teach them to sometimes actively do nothing. This was very, very difficult for them. They are not used to it, okay? They are senior researchers from the academy. Okay, it's something that was very prominent. So all of this, we had to do a lot of mentoring, and this is the next slide about what we did to overcome these challenges, trainings, a lot of investment in one-on-one mentoring from us as coaches, from the VP of HR, who worked a lot about that and supporting the managers and people. We created forum groups to discuss daily dilemmas. We worked closely with HR, and sometimes people did not like it and were dismissed. And many times when manager asked me, what if my hero will not align with the method? Well, he might be dismissed. Maybe he will find a challenge somewhere else, because many times there are more bottlenecks than someone that helps us make the progress. Okay, this is another drawing. One of the managers in the training, we did some gamification, and they had to write things on a note and put them on the wall. And then he wrote something on the wall, and he asked, who's gonna take this note and put it on the wall? Okay, he's used that, team used to it. This manager did not survive. Okay, real quick. Two main outcomes for this change, okay, about the cross-functional team and the different roles and accountabilities in the organization. First and most prominent, the team members felt the increased level of impact they have on the product development. The motivation was much higher. The collaboration of the people was much higher. I remember one time that the VP of R&D told me that the CEO entered his office and asked him what's going on. And he said, what do you mean, what's going on? He said, I don't know. I see people huddling all the time, talking to each other in the kitchen, in the desk. Before that, it was very quiet. People went to the labs and came back. People are collaborating, what's going on? And so, but this is something that really made a lot of positive impact. I think 99% of the people came to me and say, how much impact do I have now? Because, you know, all of them are doctors, PhDs. But before the change, only the senior researcher told them what they need to do. They didn't have any impact, now they do. Okay, and this was very, very important. And also, of course, it created more transparency because the teams were cross-functional, so the end-to-end view of the state of the battery, not only the electrolytes, were there, and it enabled them to make smarter decisions about the product as a whole. Okay? Two little anecdotes that happened there to emphasize the essence of the DNA of inspection and adaptation that this organization had following the transformation. For example, the team size. As Agile coach, I know to recommend my clients that the team size should not go over 10 people. Okay, this is from my experience that don't work. But I have a lot of expertise, and I didn't have enough knowledge in this industry. So they started with really huge team of 20 people, and we inspected and adapted. And over time, they experienced the difficulties to communicate in such large team and decided to make it smaller. It is much better than me coming to them and say, work in small team. I don't want to come and tell them, told you so. Okay, I want them to really have the DNA of inspection and adaptation, because Scrum is not a prescription. It doesn't tell you how to do things. There are some recommendations, and you need to read the field. Okay? Another issue is about scarce resources. There were many people with scarce resources that had to provide services to different teams, and they had a lot of context which moved from from here to there, and 20% here and 30% there, and etc. This was very, very troubling for these people. Low motivation. No one was happy with their job eventually. So again, there is no quick one solution for that, right? Maybe there are limitations in manpower or in money that they cannot recruit, whatever. But we put the elephant on the table. We discussed the problem. We thought about ways how to reduce the number of people that are scarce resources, and over time it went better and better. Okay, so this is the DNA of inspection and adaptation of a true Agile organization. So this is about people and teams, and I want to move now to talk about working routines. First, and this is another difference for most software organizations, is the sprint length. In most software organizations, do you work in software organization? What's the sprint length?
2 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, I hear something. This is the average, okay? But it doesn't work here, because experiments take time, even more than a month. So what can I do? I cannot tell them how to make it faster, okay? But we tried 3 and 4 weeks. They settled after a while for 4 weeks, okay? And even the experiment was not over. Things were happening along these months, so they are able to get their decision, and this is fine. Since then, as I told you, I was working in several biotech organizations, and 3 to 4 weeks is the average in these organizations, in this industry, unlike software industry, which is mostly 2. Okay? Now, the most impactful routine that make the routine that made the most impact on the organization was the sprint review. The sprint review in this organization and in the biotech is the place to really understand what's going on and inspect and adapt the outcome, make smarter decisions about what to do next. In the software industry, I don't know how it's with you, maybe you want to share? Because usually, from my experience, and I have many years of experience, mostly it's about, okay, the team sits together, maybe one product owner comes along and say hi, and we demonstrate the code lines and sometimes the outcome, okay, and great job. And we continue work on the backlog as it was before. No changes, maybe a small bug that we found along the way. But here, the review, first of all, it was a really long meeting at the end of the sprint. Many stakeholders attended, important stakeholders, the VP of R&D, the VP of product, people from engineering, marketing, sales, everybody came, okay? And of course, all the team. They were sitting for hours together to demonstrate, to show, to present what they were able to achieve during the sprints, what are the conclusions, and there was a really high energy discussion about what to do next, how this impacts our future researches, okay? There is not too much of refinement process in these industries because the review really makes every result of an experiment make a high impact about how to move on. So I can't plan it in advance. So mostly we skip or almost skip the refinement, but at the end of the sprint and before the beginning of the sprint, the review is a major routine, is a major meeting, and we make really good, there are really good discussions there that help the team to finish this meeting and go on with the planning, taking all the feedback from the review meeting and plan the next sprint. Okay, so of course it's long and it's exaggerating, it's like tiring, and people want to speak, to get heard, and everybody wants to speak, so there are things that needs to be improved, but still the impact, it's never perfect, right? But still the impact is huge, okay? So this was the main point, and then they went to the planning, and the planning was really tightly coupled with the review, unlike my experience with most of the software organizations that we have the review done, let's go back to the backlog. Okay? Now it's really, the team was gathered after this feedback, after they heard all the stakeholders, and make suggestions of how they want to move forward, and finally the product owner, the product manager approved or disapproved or suggested them, and they consulted also the group managers, the senior researchers, and they moved on, okay, decided what to do, and kicked off the sprint. Okay, we have time. Two more anecdotes that to help understand the DNA of agility in that organization. So at the beginning, it was really hard for them to craft a single sprint goal. Okay, every task was a goal. So they had like 20 goals per sprint. Again, I could have taught them, and I did. Okay, what's the importance of a goal? Why do you need to narrow the number? But I couldn't really, make them do that. But over time, when they had to do that, they understood that at the end of the sprint, many of the goals were not achieved. And they understand that they need more focus. They really understood the need, and over time, they narrowed from 15 to 20 goals per sprint. They are now working with one or two or three, okay, which is fine. not by the book maybe, which is only one, but they are able to achieve the goals. They understand the difference between the task and the main goal. So this is a great example of how organization really makes the inspection and adaptation part of his DNA and his culture. We talked earlier about the definition of done, okay? That it's not a piece of work in software, but it's a milestone. What do we need to know, okay, in order to make the next decision about whether we're going to this direction or to that direction? And this would be the definition of done. What do we need to have in hand in order to make that decision? Okay? Or in other biotech organizations that I was working with, they were developing big data for pharmaceutical companies to help them make the pills more accurate for the state of the person. I mean, relative to his history and allergies and etc. So they had big data and provided data to such industries. So they need to have data to get data, and they had models that they run the data on top of them to get the results. So before we started, they had to pick all the data in order to start the processing. And I taught them that they can work more together. Even if they have some of the data, they can do some work on this data to bring something, even if it's not deliverable. They can see that they get some meaningful result, and then they can make the data that they are collecting more accurate to what they need or fix the algorithm. Okay, so we teach them to work this way, and it just created a very high impact. Also, by the book, you have to run daily every day, right? But they were really agile, and they asked me, Michal, can we run it 3 times a week? I don't care. Okay, it works for you. The team is really working together. They don't speak to the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is even many times not there. They are really agile, so I don't care about not by the book. I've seen too many organizations that are working by the book, and they are far away from being agile. Okay, so another good example. And also the retrospective. In many, and if you come to Women in Agile tomorrow, so I will routines that are doing in a very habitual way, the same over time, and we don't get the real value out of them. So, in many retrospective, what went well, what can we fix, and it's boring over time, and people are tired, and we don't want to have it. They were super creative with the retrospective. We invested, I as an Agile coach, invested hours and hours with the Scrum Master that approached me to get more creative, to bring the people together. They focused a lot about communication between the team members, not necessarily about the work, which is so important, because when people work good, they like each other, they're making friends, they know how to talk to each other, usually they do a better job together. So they don't talk about nuances of jobs only, about how to make the team more impactful, increase the friendship, have fun, respect each other. They talked a lot about this, and they did it in super creative ways. They invested a lot of time in that because they knew it was so important, and it did make the impact, so it's very important. So to summarize, the main impact of the Agile transformation in this industry is highly engaged and motivated people. This was seen, okay? Create transparency about the product and not about all the parts of it. Achieve focus of the work, what we need to do, what we can skip because we have to work faster. It's a product, we need to get money. And the ability to make smarter decisions. They were really able to get all of this. And what were the things that enabled this? First of all, determined management. The senior management, they were the people that pushed for this transformation and understand that they had to invest time and energy in that. Unlike other organizations, when senior manager, they pay me, and then they say, but I know my work, go to work with the teams. it doesn't work. They invested a lot of time and attention, and although I don't work with them anymore because they're doing that, I'm still in touch with them. They still send people to trainings. They still ask for my advice. They still invest a lot of time in the people and in the transformation. Second, the senior management is not a domain expert. The VP of R&D is not the most professional person in the room. He knows the language good enough, and he has manager skills that enable people not to tell him stories, okay? He won't believe you so fast, okay? Very smart man, and not the only one. In other organizations I saw it as well. When the VP of R&D is not a specialist, and he's a manager is a profession. He knows how people need to speak. He knows what he needs from his people. He needs to trust them, and he needs to believe them. And if they go around, no, you will not understand. You have to do it this way. They don't believe that. Okay? So this is also, to my opinion, one of the success criteria of organization. In many software organizations, the VP of R&D knows the code and then starts to involve in the code and let me do that. It doesn't work. Okay? Active involvement of HR, as I told you, the HR invested also a lot of time to support the people, to mentor them, to hear them crying about their job and etc., etc. They really invested here. They invested a lot in the process in general, okay? And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about attention and courage to take tough decision, like letting people go. This is not a decision that we take on a daily basis, but if we believe in our way and there are people that don't like it, even if they are really high professionals, there will be other professional people that we can hire. If we want to work in this direction, these people can be a great obstacle to achieve the goal. So they were very careful about the people, and they took tough decisions to get it to be successful. And we are out of time, and I am done, and I want to thank you very much for listening.